Nadine, unfortunately, we cannot hear you. Can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, a little technical mistake. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 6th User Forum. My name is Nadine Lacal and I will be your moderator for the session of Pillar 4, which will be dedicated to the topic from crisis to recovery through transnational tourism projects aiming at a sustainable green macro region. In this macro region, tourism significantly contributes not only to its GDP and employment, but also boosts a range of sectors in its value chain, providing necessary income to the local communities. In order to recover, strong cooperation and coordination will be required, and the user provides a unique platform for this task with a multi-level governance system for strengthened macro region, as well as funding, which will be very important to recover. This is where the embedding process comes into play, meaning to embed user flagship projects into mainstream SC and IPA funds, as well as other EU and national funding instruments, which is key to make user a success story in the next programming period. Pillar 4 identified 5 flagships that will contribute to the recovery process of tourism and culture that also responds to the needs of the new normal for tourism. With this short introduction, I would suggest to dive right into the topic as time is short, and to start with our first speaker. Mr. Slavomir Tokarski has recently started his new position as Director for European Territorial Cooperation, Macro Regions, Interact and Programs Implementation in DG Regio. This, combined with his previous experience as Director in DG Grow, makes him a perfect fit to inform us about the embedding perspectives for transnational tourism projects, strengthening a sustainable macro region. Director Tokarski, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for this flattering introduction, and good morning to everybody. And I'm quite happy to speak here at this pillar session and to share with you some thoughts about how cooperation on macro-regional level could contribute to the touristic recovery of the region. So, as a reminder, Europe has for more than a decade experienced continued growth in the tourist sector, and it was a #1 tourist destination in the world, accounting for 10% of the EU GDP and 12% of the EU employment. And the countries of USER, with their natural resources and cultural heritage, have very well contributed to it. In 2019, 3 out of the 4 participating member states, Croatia, Italy, and Greece, ranked in the top 10 of the most popular EU destinations for international tourists. And moreover, there has been also a growing interest of international travelers in the enlargement countries of the Western Balkans. So it seems that it's going to last forever, and the tourism will grow steadily without any need of particular public support, although we have seen first negative signs associated with the mass tourism. And then in the COVID-19 crisis, and the tourist sector came to a halt very abruptly, and also demonstrated to us in quite an unexpected way how many jobs depend on it. So if you look now at the economy, tourism is the hardest hit industrial ecosystem, with an estimated drop of 85% in January 2021 in international tourist arrivals compared to 2020. In hospitality, travel agencies, tour operators, airlines, other forms of transport, and very strongly among SMEs. And this is why recovery in the European economy will be strongly linked to the successful recovery of the tourist sector. And even though the vaccination campaigns are progressing now around Europe and boosting hope for loosening travel restrictions, it is still estimated that the recovery to 2019 levels will take until 2023. And this is worrisome, especially for this macro region where tourism plays a tremendous role for the economy and livelihoods of citizens, and contributes in some countries to almost 25% of GDP and 23% of employment in 2019. So what we need to do, we have to help the hardworking business owners, employees, and many men and women who have put everything into the establishment of hotels, restaurants, and cafes over the past years, so that they do not lose the income of livelihood. So what can we do in the short term and long term to support and reform the tourist sector? And how can macro-regional actions contribute to it? Let me start by saying that it will be important to re-establish trust for safe and healthy travels, especially in view of the summer period, which is around the corner. Following the package on tourism and transport from May 2020, the Commission proposed a communication on a common path to safe and sustained reopening on 17th March 2021, so that citizens can recover their way of life, but can do so in a safe and sustainable way with control over the virus. And this includes the idea of a digital green certificate covering vaccination and a common approach to a gradual lifting of COVID-19 restrictions. So now more than ever, European tourists need strong political support and a coordinated approach among authorities in the member states. And we saw what happened in the first months of pandemics, where such a coordination was lacking. So this is where I see the potential of macro-regional strategies, this unique cooperation platform to facilitate the recovery. I think that at the same time, it is also clear that business as usual cannot continue, and that we need to use the recovery to reinvent and rethink the European tourist sector. This was imperative already before the crisis, but it has been accelerated and gained new impetus. So we have to turn the challenges of the digital age into opportunities, means meeting the needs of modern travelers, to help tourists reach a carbon neutral economy, to give our workforce the right skills for the new normal, and to turn volume-based tourism into value-based tourism. And this shall boost a wider range of sectors in the value chain and provide more income to the local communities, not only few chosen actors. So the recovery is a rare opportunity to change old patterns toward a sustainable, digital and green tourism. But this will require joint efforts and new ideas from businesses, public authorities, education, and training providers and tourists alike. And last October, during the European Tourist Convention, the Commission identified 30 actions together with stakeholders for the tourists of tomorrow that should fit into the Tourist Agenda 2050. And those actions were built around the idea of safe and seamless tourist experience, the idea of greener or low-carbon holidays in line with the European Green Deal and the climate-neutral tourist ecosystem, and the idea of tourists powered by data to steer innovation, data exchange, and analytics to improve the tourist offer. So I'm glad to see that the chosen flagship of Pillar 4 will be contributing to the Agenda 2050 and responding to the needs of modern tourists to leave a green footprint while connecting with the local communities and cultures of the regions. And I think in the preceding panel, we listened to the discussions about the environment and, for example, the idea of Karso or Karst or Kras, extending from Lake Ohrid in Macedonia to the Slovenian, Austrian, and Italian border. That's something which certainly could lend itself to bring in those ideas for the green tourism in connection with local communities and offering sort of unique tourist experience. Also, the development of cycling routes in the framework of the Routes for You project can play a significant role for rural development, jobs creation, for preserving and enhancing culture and natural heritage, ranging from arts to local gastronomy or the preservation of biodiversity. And as an enthusiastic cyclist, I cannot wait going there with my bike. Another flagship projects deal with the importance of data sharing by creating a macro-regional ICT system to support the development and promotion of quality-assessed micro and small and medium tourist operations and destinations in the USE. So by cooperating on macro-regional level, the impact will multiply efforts of each single country towards the recovery. It will also expand the tourist offer, make visitors stay longer, and enjoy quality holiday. Clearly, the recovery will also need substantial financial contributions, and cohesion policy will continue to provide an important support for tourist investments. In order to do so, with the 2021-2027 program period, investments in tourism will be possible and eligible under all 5 policy objectives of cohesion policy, as well as culture being a vital asset for regional economic competitiveness and attractiveness, with cultural heritage contributing to the image and identity of cities and regions. And this will support the tourist industry also on a cross-sectoral approach, such as transport or in fields of innovation and trainings. So to conclude, the cooperation of user can not only help to recover the European tourist sector, but should also be used to develop it further. You have a unique platform with open and transparent participation, inclusiveness, and multi-level governance at your disposal. So make the most of it for a sustainable, attractive, and resilient Adriatic and Union microregion. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Director Tokarski. And now let us please focus on the priorities for sustainable tourism, which will be presented by Ms. Natalia Havidic, who is the Director General at the Directorate for Strategic Planning, Digitalization and EU in the Ministry of Tourism and Sport of Croatia. Please, the floor is yours.
The microphone.
Yes, please unmute.
Okay, I will start from the beginning then, sorry. Dear colleagues, dear organizers, dear honorable speakers, dear EUSIRE members, dear all, allow me to greet you at the 6th EUSIRE Forum, the Pillar 4th Sustainable Tourism session. We are all here today at this panel with one important purpose: to put tourism in the center of our efforts and to recognize its central role in this macro region. Tourism holds the focal position in this region, and no other macro region is so dependent and so connected to tourism as EUSIRE. Let us not forget that important fact: jobs are in question, businesses, companies, existences, people and families. The pre-COVID situation forced us to reconsider severely the notion and value of tourism, which, burdened with negative connotations then, needed an urgent change. And it did start slowly changing already then. But now the world is drastically changing. It is not just traveling we are speaking of. So let us look at tourism from the new perspective, the responsible perspective, the food perspective, the water perspective, because this is what we shall lack in the future. The time has come for tourism stakeholders to more seriously share their concerns and their ideas about the future. We have to prepare through projects so that we came out of this crisis even stronger, and when we overcome the pandemic, we can stand ready for the future. Should we rebuild, restart, reshape tourism? Certainly, we should not start from the scratch, from the beginning, and we cannot go back. No, we should start from all that, threatening and destructive, having in mind and reflecting positive needs and outcomes in the tourism sector. What are our aims, our priorities? This is what we are going to hear today. Shall we go from mega to micro locations, micro destinations, micro volumes? Do we need to turn to local communities? Do we need repositioning within the totality of nature, culture, and society? Can we start creating new post-COVID clean and healthy landscapes, shifting away from destructive over-tourism, undergoing serious transformation in search of high-quality results? Diversifying, managing sustainably tourism destinations, and managing symbolic relationships that connect nature and culture in ecosystems to equip humanity for the present and for the future, for jobs, for food and water, for healthy environment. And how can we do it? We shall soon hear that in the following presentations, pointing towards new knowledge supported by education, by digitalization, by fluid networks of sustainable businesses, bringing ideas of new consciousness and connectivity to tourism destinations, integrating, diversified, strong in crisis, strong in high quality and smart management. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Havidic, and we appreciate that you will stay with us for the concluding remarks later on for the session. So we've heard before the embedding process is very important, and embedding the flagships for the macro-regional strategy will be presented by two of our user key implementers, as we call them, from Croatia. Mr. Senka Daniel is the coordinator of Pillar 4 and has been leading the endeavor together with a counterpart from Albania to identify and agree on the 5 flagships with the TSG members in the field of sustainable tourism. With her is Mislav Kovac, national coordinator of the user from the Ministry of Regional Development and EU funds, who oversees and ensures the successful embedding process of all user flagships in Croatia. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Danil. So, dear EUSER members, dear all, it is a great pleasure to be here with you today at the 6th EUSER Forum at our Sustainable Tourism session. This is an excellent opportunity to once again recall our mission, our vision, and TSG4 goals and priorities. We have been intensely discussing our priorities for at least for the last 3 years, carefully selecting strategic project ideas that correspond to our joint needs, our common goals, our policies. We were very selective and cautious. We were choosing only those project ideas that have an overall strategic value for the whole of the EUSER, only those that should be applied on the macro-regional level, which will raise the value of EUSER of sustainable tourism for all countries involved. Our targeted goals were looking for synergizing effects for EUSER that only applied on the macro-regional level and are able to produce the right holistic positive impact. Our keywords were sustainability, responsibility, and synergy. These pre-COVID key messages became even stronger into post-COVID era for the development of tourism. Tourism is an old word with a new meaning. We have set up the scene for strategic project development rooted in the recognized needs. Need for a more sustainable macro region, need for a well-managed destination in the region, smart and innovative, integrated and compatible, diversified and multidisciplinary in product development, networked and thematically focused. Taking into account the rich and recognizable heritage as a unique, authentic value for local communities, for remote and micro location, for visibility, and for new pioneering visitors. And all this should be relying on serious research, surveys, and knowledge, education, and planning. This is our policy and vision for the future of EUSER, to be supported by our strategic projects. This is how we have selected our flagships, and we are expecting them to be embedded. And now we shall hear more about it from my colleague Mislav Kovac from Ministry for Regional Development and EU funds. Mislav, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senka, and thank you very much, Nadine. First of all, I would like to congratulate our dear colleagues and friends from Slovenia for organizing this event despite all the circumstances around us. And I would like also to thank you, my dear colleagues and friends from Pillar 4, for inviting me today here to speak on this interesting panel. I would start from the very beginning, from the, I would say, the general framework of the embedding and the flagships. This is implementation of course, cohesion policies through which each country would like to create environment conducive to its growth and development, and of course, to use the full potential of EU funds and the national investments. Since, of course, these effects do not stop on the territorial border. Of course, it is necessary to better connect countries and to foster that kind of cooperation that contributes best to our sustainable and balanced development, not only of the Adriatic Ionian region, then to entire territory of the Europe. I need to be very honest and said that embedding process is not something new. Despite the growing number of the projects and initiatives that are being financed in the 2014-2020 period, and I would say some efforts by some participating countries in Adriatic and Ionian region who try to embed the priorities in the mainstream operational programs and the national funds, unfortunately, we didn't reach such a success, and the situation for the embeddings remains unsatisfactory, in my opinion. That's why for the new programming period and for the new multi-annual financial framework, it was in the regulation already plan to support the policies tailored to the local and regional needs, to the multi-level governments, and to associate participating country by encouraging cooperation. So this is the basic for the embedding. And of course, Croatia, but I think said all the other countries are advocate the concept of the embedding and macro-regional cooperation based on the more efficient use of financial instruments and existing sources of funding. So this is the reason and the logic behind the embedding process. Of course, all the participating countries should see how to consider to what extent these macro-regional strategies and priorities can give added value to its national priorities, but also to the cohesion policy in general. Now it's the time, crucial time for the embedding process in which we need to raise the awareness of the benefits of macro-regional priorities, not only in Pillar 4 and the tourism, then in all other pillars of our Adriatic and Ionian strategy, to, of course, connect them with the possible funding programs. We need also to take into account and to have in mind the potential projects that have been identified so far, their relevance, their maturity, and of course, general compliance with the strategic framework, not only of participating countries, their planning acts, then in cohesion policy package in general. We need also to be very flexible, be very open-minded, and of course, be very coordinated in order to do the embedding process in the best way. Thank you very much. I'm here if you have any other question, and of course, open to discuss further with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stenka and Mislav. And I agree, raising awareness of the benefit of the user will continue to be an important aspect in order to be very successful with the embedding process. And I also thank you personally for also following this task and also putting so much effort behind it. So next, we will have a keynote address from Ms. Flaminia Santarelli. Ms. Santarelli is the Director General at the Ministry of Cultural Heritage and Tourism in Italy, and has an experience in tourism promotion, marketing, and valorization of cultural heritage. She will give a presentation on the G20 Rome tourism guidelines that will drive Italy's policy planning and activities for the years to come. Please, Ms. Santarelli, the floor is yours. Don't forget to unmute.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Here I am. Thank you. Thank you and good morning, dear colleagues and user members. It's a great honor for me to be here with you today to present the outcomes of the G20 Ministerial Tourism meeting under the Italian presidency of the G20. Please, let's start with the slides. Can we move with the start with the slide, please? Anyway, let's start. As you know, the G20 is an international forum that brings together the world's major economies. Since December 2020, Italy holds the presidency of the G20. The tourism ministerial meeting took already place on the 4th of May 2021, and it was the very first ministerial meeting under the Italian presidency. The presidency agenda rests upon three pillars: people, planet, and prosperity. They are three broad interconnected pillars of action to recover from the crisis. For the tourism sector, we wanted to trace a direction to regenerate the tourism industry post-COVID-19. As you know, last year, nearly 62 million jobs were lost globally in this sector, a drop of 18.5%. It was a painful time for travel and tourism industry, with micro, small, and medium enterprises especially affected. The G20 tourism ministers met under Italy's G20 presidency to discuss and build consensus around policies, priorities, and concrete guidelines to support the sustainable and resilient recovery of travel and tourism. Have you some news from the slides? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, the slide number 6, please. On the 4th of May, the G20 ministers met to discuss the future of tourism. They acknowledged that measures put in place today can shape a more resilient, sustainable, and inclusive tourism sector. Let me briefly underline two of the priorities we addressed. Safe mobility, which is the key to restore confidence, and the green transformation for a more sustainable tourism. Please, the slide number 7. Okay, thank you. The G20 Ministries of Tourism endorsed the G20 Rome guidelines for the future of tourism, developed with the support of the OECD. The guidelines identify 7 key policy areas for immediate action. The first is safe mobility, has been strongly underlined by the G20 membership. Removing travel restrictions and restoring confidence as soon as safely possible is essential to recovery of tourism and of the wider economy. The second priority is crisis management, to make sure that the needs and position of tourism are understood and reflected in national crisis management strategies and in global governance. Please, the next one. The third priority is resilience, to secure a robust and stable tourism sector in uncertain times. G20 members also agreed on the need to correct the current lack of indicators and statistical information on the resilience of the tourism industry and of destinations, and more inclusiveness. The effects of the coronavirus outbreak and tourism have been asymmetrical, with some countries, destinations, and people being much more exposed to the crisis than others. Inclusiveness must be the new key focus of tourism policies. Please, the next one. Green transformation is the 5th priority. Environmental targets should be encouraged for destinations and for the tourism industry. The G20 members discussed the need to put climate change and the reversal of biodiversity loss at the heart of the multilateral agenda. Digital transition is the 6th priority. It was recommended to enable all tourism stakeholders to benefit fully from digital opportunities. Finally, to support recovery and build a stronger, more resilient and sustainable tourism economy, investments and infrastructures, the 7th priority, should focus on a sustainable future for tourism. The G20 guidelines on the future of tourism reached the broad consensus. This success frames the work ahead, showing a way forward for global tourism. The next slide, please. Additionally, the G20 tourism membership welcomed the recommendations for the transition to a green travel and tourism economy submitted by the UN World Tourism Organization as a contribution to the policy area green transformation and called for action to embrace sustainability in tourism. Thank you.
Thank you very much for highlighting these very important tourism guidelines. And now I would say it's time to turn to our panel discussion. We will first pass the floor to our 5 honorable speakers and would then, if time allows, pass the floor to you, dear audience, for your questions. So please be ready or forward them as soon as you wish. As we have heard before, the tourism sector needs a green and smart recovery, a topic for which we have invited Mr. Samir Dede. He is the Director General of the firstly established National Agency for Protected Areas at the Ministry of Tourism and Environment of Albania, and will focus on the inventory of protected areas, how to manage tourism flows in protected areas, and what role they play in promoting natural and cultural heritage. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I already sent you the presentation, so if you can share it with the others. The only problem is that being witness of the presentation from our colleagues from Italy, nobody can see it because in a small window. So if you can share it on a, that everybody can see it, it's up to you. So, okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I will try to be short. Albania, it's a small territory, and in this small territory, we are hosting one of the high level of biodiversity because we are having a lot of variety of landscape and also habitats. Particularly, we have about 32% of the flora of the Europe, and we normally host about 80% of the biodiversity in Europe. So that make Albania one of the countries which have a possibility to have a nice nature to be visited. Mostly of this high value of nature and biodiversity are present in our protected areas. And if we see the history of the protected areas in how it's going in Albania, we see that we passed it from about 15% in 2015 to a 21% of the territory, which is present in our territory. So if you can pass to the slide number 5, you can see the process of the increasing of surface during the years, and arriving to the last decision of our government in 2020 with about 21% of the coverage of the country. We also have some international designation of the area, which are related to the Ramsar site and also to the Biosphere Reserve and the UNESCO site that are nature-based mostly. So seeing all this picture of the nice value of the nature, and also having in mind the institutional problem, the government of Albania in 2015 decided to establish the Agency of Protected Areas with different options. One of the options is not only the protection of the biodiversity and nature in our country, but also developing the education and tourism inside this protected area. So it's been seen as one of the way out how to increase the tourism, but based on the nature. So if we pass to slide number 8, you see that it's a nice picture of Flamengo, which I choose it, and the 3 pillar, what's the management, promotion, and development. So that is something that we have tried through the agency together with the ministry to bring back people in our parks and in our protected areas. What we have done it firstly is the idea of infrastructure, and Albania in this in the last 3 years have developed more than 10 visitor centers. For somebody it's a normal way to have visitor center in protected areas, but in Albania we have 0 until 2016, so that all these visitor center have been very much useful, and also 7 information center, small information center for the visitors. We have tried to build a kind of infrastructure related to the trails and walking paths inside the protected areas. And the big challenges which we have now is the interpretation of the inside this protected area, which have been our main focus in the coming, will be our main focus in the coming year. Then we have seen how much the tourism have changed in the presence of protected areas, and you can see many activities in the slide number 10, which is related to from the children presence to the students' education, to the normal tourist visitors, to the walking in the nature. So all these activities the last 2-3 years have been one of the main, let's say, issue and focus of our agency, together with the staff that we have distributed in all the country. One of the nice thing that I would like to mention, and you have it in slides 11, it's the project we started in 2018 called Smile Albania. During the 2 months of the peak of tourism, July and August, we were hiring 500 young people in the whole country, which was identified by their T-shirts and cups, and they were distributed in all the country as a ambassador of Albania, waiting for the tourism that was distributed in the whole country. And we call it Smile because the idea is that everybody have to smile when it's tourism, and with the help of with the guiding the tourism, informing them, having a lot of environmental activity like cleaning, like camping, like also having fun from the young generation in many gatherings. So this was a very nice and attractive experience. The number of tourism is usually, if you see slide 12, have been increased rapidly, with a decrease, unfortunately, to the year 2020 due to the pandemic. Even that we count about 2.5 million tourists in our protected areas during 2020, but it's if you see the increasing rapidly on the 2016, 17, 18, 19, when we have the peak with 4.6 million of tourists visiting our protected area, that is something which we try to recover after the pandemic, and this year will be our big challenges. If we are going to see then what is the EU support on this, so we have, I have mentioned here in slide 13, 3 main projects that our agency is implementing and bringing some new ideas also from outside of the country. One is what we call the Destimed. The Destimed is one of the projects that have been implemented in different EU countries and also in Albania, preparing ecotourism package for the protected areas. This has been one of the very interesting project that we have implemented together with our colleagues from outside of the country, from the EU mostly. And we have identified that eco packages are very nice and very attractive for the tourism. The other thing which I want to mention, also this on the basis of the cross-border cooperation, together with Italy and Montenegro, we have the Blue Land. The Blue Land is kind of how to manage areas together with the community, but not bringing them as designating them as protected areas, but rather managing together with the community and the local authority in a sustainable way. And this is an experience started in Italy and also implemented in Albania. These are more or less the situation which we have seen in Albania, and also which we want to develop in the future. And our motto is the 5-star hotels in Albania, the 5 stars of the resort in Albania, it's the nature. So I think nature should be our main focus in the tourism development in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dede. And indeed, this macro region has a rich and beautiful natural heritage tourists want to see and enjoy, and preserving this treasure is important. So we have just heard about an ecotourism project, which brings me to our next panelist, Mrs. Elia Apostolopoulou, who is the head of the Department for Monitoring European Union Projects from the Hellenic Ministry of Tourism. She will present the role of ecotourism for sustainable tourism development and how USER can contribute to it. Please.
Good morning from Greece. I'm very happy to participate in this panel. I hope you can all see my presentation.
Yes.
So what we're going to see today is what can be the contribution of USER to greening our Adriatic and Ionian region. Just a second. Here you can see my first picture is a picture of a normal day in Santorini, Greece, where you can see it's always overcrowded. So the main question is, how can we see COVID as an opportunity to redesign and reshape tourism development model? We need to base the new model on sustainability principles and development of special interest tourism. And we need to see a rise in safe destinations close to nature and distant from crowded areas where people can have access to outdoor active leisure activities. What brings us actually to ecotourism and sustainable tourism development. So what is actually ecotourism? It's a responsible travel to natural areas that conserves the environment, sustains the well-being of local people, and involves interpretation and education. It includes activities such as observation of ecosystems, sightseeing, hiking, and other recreational activities, which, however, come without disturbing the environmental balance of the visited area. It promotes the protection of environmental and cultural resources and cultivates an environmental-friendly attitude. Here, we have to see what needs to be done in order to develop a smart and sustainable ecotourism destination. In order to do that, we need to develop a guide for designing and developing a smart and sustainable ecotourism destination according to the resources of each destination in the macro region. We need investments in environmentally friendly infrastructures and sustainable management equipment. And we also need to improve the ecotourists' access to information. This could include data-driven smart applications, where we can have monitoring systems in protected areas, smart applications and indicator systems to maintain the ecological balance, such as smart water and energy metering. And definitely we need to support tourism investments for small and medium-sized enterprises. So what should be done after we have developed a smart and sustainable ecotourism destinations? Clustering and networking is a vital concept here. So we need smart and sustainable management of ecotourism destinations in order to tackle key challenges such as energy consumption and management of natural, environmental, and cultural resources. Ecotourism certification schemes and evaluation of local businesses and tour operators should be done with regard to principles of sustainable management. Developing applications for regular monitoring and evaluation of the implementation of the developed strategy and action plan for an ecotourism destination. And finally, we need to have training activities on smart and sustainable management of ecotourism destinations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for a very sharp and short presentation on the needs and the understanding of what ecotourism is. So now we will turn to cultural roots, and they have been launched by the Council of Europe in 1987 to embrace the heritage of different countries and cultures of Europe. So in a joint program of the DG Regio and the Council of Europe, Roots for You was created, leading to the establishment of two cultural roots within USER, the Roman heritage route and the roots of the olive tree. So our next speakers are Irina Marsh from the Ministry of Culture of Slovenia and thematic steering group member of culture in 3 macro-regional strategies, who will give a joint presentation with Masha Klarova, director from the Walk of Peace Foundation on Cultural Thematic Roots, as key driver of innovation and digital creative tourism. And you two have the challenging task to deliver your messages in 5 minutes. Please, the floor is yours.
So hello to everyone, and thank you for your kind introduction. So since spring 2020, when Europe was hit by COVID-19 pandemic, culture has been among the most negatively impacted sector. The National Recovery and Resilience Plan and programming documents of European cohesion policy wish to, with an appropriate combination of reforms and public investment projects, provide all necessary conditions to enhance sustainable development and the resilience of cultural sector. In this context, 2 priority measures were prioritized by Ministry of Culture. So both with the proper policy mix and interaction are recognized as the key measures within the concept of a smarter Europe, by promoting innovative and smart economic transformations. So during the programming process of European cohesion policy, the Ministry of Culture designed a proposal of measures with the name not to duplicate, but to supplement and even upgrade the draft of RRP measures. Consequently, the measures to support the culture and sustainable tourism and the digitalization of culture have a firm basis in the draft of Slovenia's Smart Specialization Strategy in at least 2 pillars, in the digital and the circular one. Within Interreg, one of the instruments of the key cross-border cooperation, culture constitutes one of the most popular topics. The concept of cultural thematic roots integrate multi-sectoral cooperation among education, economic, environmental, and cultural sector, and covers all levels of cooperation from local to transnational. So by giving you a short and quick overview through the proposal of measures in various draft programming documents, we believe that we are able to set sound strategic framework to stimulate innovation in the field of sustainable tourism, especially of cultural thematic roots. But from the very outset of implementation process, or so-called real life, we think that should be relevant to address some challenges in a more detailed manner. For example, how to integrate the new European Commission initiatives to European cohesion policy programs and project implementation. So, for example, new European Bauhaus initiative pops up as a response on COVID-19 pandemic, and we believe that is very important instrument to boost production process and logistical innovations in designing and implementing, especially cultural thematic roots. So, in the context of reaching high value, not high volume, I will pass the floor to my colleague, Ms. Masha Klarova. Thank you very much.
Hello, dear all. Yes, now it is the PowerPoint presentation. I would like to present you Walk of Peace idea, which was last year selected as best Interreg project. And our idea is that First World War heritage can reunite Europe again. paths which were once divided by front lines can bring us now together. That is why our value is peace. It is based on cooperation of respect and partnership. Our mission is that all what we do together, no matter on which side we were 100 years ago. Our vision is to put European Walk of Peace on cultural route of Council of Europe, to put First World War heritage on UNESCO, and especially that Walk of Peace is an opportunity for local territory, for local people that work together, and is even opportunity for sustainable territorial development. It is also a story of Austro-Hungarian Church Javorca, where all people, no matter of nation and religions, find peace in the time of First World War and even now today. It also has European heritage label. It is also a story or opportunity how we can come all together from past dark to brighter future together. The Walk of Peace idea is really idea of bottom-up approach and step-by-step development process. It was born in Austria, in local territory, and then was also in a local territories developed in Italy and in Slovenia. We did first cross-border project 5-7 years ago, where lead partner was province of Gorizia, Italian side. Then we reached UNESCO tentative list. Then with support of Interreg Danube project, we have very successful network project where we spread this idea in the Danube region. And now we upgrade together with Socha Regional Development Center and other partners, strategic project between Slovenia and Italy. All these help us that last year this idea was selected as best Euro Interreg project. Walk of Peace is divided in two parts. One is cross-border Slovenian, Italian cultural trail product with all activities which have to be done, that product is alive. We protect heritage, we valorize, we preserve, we present, we do education activities, promotion, we organize common remembrance events and commemorations, we do digitalization, creativity, we include local people as guides, as tourism providers. Now we will prepare a cross-border management and marketing plan. And second idea is transnational European Walk of Peace, which is now spread in, let's say, 9 countries, with first activity, very important, when we prepare common database of selected First World War heritage. Also, our partnership was developed really every day, step by step. Our first partners were local people who were aware of this heritage, but now partnership is really diverse and upgraded from local to national and transnational level. Transnational idea is now supported by more than 20 different institutions from all over the Europe, from west to east, from north to south, because we want that First World War front lines, which were once divided Europe, shall bring us together now. You can see here how the idea is spreading from cross-border territory to transnational area. You are welcome to join us, and thank you for this invitation.
Thank you both for this presentation, and congratulations also to being awarded the Best Interact Project in 2020. And I think it was beautiful, like you said, something that has divided us in the past will now be used to actually bring us closer together. Let us then turn to our next speaker, who is Ms. Gordana Judovic, who has an in-depth knowledge on international relations, EU enlargement policy, economic development, and environmental economics, just to name a few. Currently, she teaches at the Faculty of Economics in Podgorica, Montenegro, and I'm sure that her students appreciate very much her first-hand experience, resuming also from her former position as Deputy Prime Minister of Montenegro and Minister for European Integration from 2004 to 2010. Ms. Judovic will look at the contribution of macro-regional strategies to EU policies in tourism, and I'm delighted to pass the floor to you. Please.
Thank you, Nadine. I will also share my screen with you. Good day, everybody, and successful work. And of course, thank you for this opportunity to share with you some ideas about our proposed topic. So my short presentation will be focused on a view of is it enough space for tourism in a new financial framework and how it is specifically with our region. So when we talk about we already heard about it enough, but I have somehow 3 points as my task. So what about a new financial perspective, and what is about support for post-COVID recovery in our region? Are there enough space for tourism? And of course, as other colleagues, are there some ideas for tourism regarding greening of economy and new models to be more creative? So probably you are familiar with the data, but me as an economist, I always like to share it with my colleagues on different presentations. I just like to confirm that unfortunately my country, the smallest in the region, is strongly hit with the COVID crisis, and our GDP decline was minus 15, and it is one of the most serious decline and the problem in the economy, not only in our region, but even in the Europe. So also Greece and Italy, Croatia, but minus 15 is really complicated to recover. So if we look at in this prognosis regarding economic post-COVID recovery plans, they are quite optimistic. All data are in positive area regarding real GDP growth, but we will see. I use still this conservative scenario regarding forecast of European Commission, not my own Ministry of Finance. We in Montenegro are even more optimistic. We think that it is possible to achieve even 10%, but still we are in process of preparation and defining of new protocol for tourism for this season. So I'm not sure that it is easy task to achieve 10% of real growth rate in 2021. But if we look at this data of WTTC, definitely this impact and decline in arrivals and contribution to GDP and employment is really, really serious in last year. Do hope that 2021 will be first year of gradual recovery and chances for job creation, not only to keep these places as it is. So if you talk about economic or socio-economic packages shared within our countries, then definitely tourism and transport package was the first in May last year by European Commission for member states. A lot of measures and programs how to support the sector strongly hit it with the COVID-19, and of course a huge economic recovery plan and long-term budget for next 7-year perspective. Somehow we from the Western Balkan also try to find ourselves in all of this. And there are a lot of reallocation of IPA funds in 2020, and of course this package of 3.3 billions in different forms to support countries of Western Balkan region to deal with the health crisis, to support business and public sector investment in cooperation with European banks for the first European Investment Bank, and of course direct budget support to countries requested as 6 in our region, only 5. Only Serbia was quite well regarding economic performances, so they did not ask for direct budget support. So waiting for IPA 3, and of course this very optimistic list of green agenda for Western Balkan. Do hope that we will have more support in a new financial perspective. What our governments do, of course, they try to prepare so-called economic packages through regular circuses, usually through the 3 months supports, then continue with that. We are strongly hitting asymmetrically both sides, the supply and demand, and there are, as on this side you can see, a lot of policy responses, economic packages, and one of the very important part is support to business in SME sector, in tourism, and of course not only long-term loans, but also subsidies for keeping the same level of employment, and of course different other models of support the sector. So now we are in the second package of this year of support, and do hope that it will also help our tourism sector and travel, of course, to be prepared better for tourist season for this year. There are good trend in reducing number of infected person. There are new established health protocol for specific tourism, different modes of offer. So do hope that it will be enough, that we can expect some kind of new modified wave of tourism in our countries this summer. This program probably will continue to the end of this year, and do hope that we can talk about even more dynamism in economic recovery program. And of course, it is good that I can see in some analysis that there are some specific credit lines and subsidies for the tourism sector in comparison with some other economies where industries, production, secondary sector, they are much more present in comparison to countries oriented to services such as Croatia, Montenegro, Albania, Greece. So we need really to think carefully about our services for the first tourism. This economic and investment plan, I share it in this slide with you, is very promising also, is connected with the pre-accession assistance. And I like to keep your attention of this flagship initiative connecting the coastal regions. For the first, this blue highway from Croatia to Greece, railroad Tirana, Podgorica, reconstruction of some ports, and some other projects in that area. And of course, green energy, waste treatment, management, waste management, digitalization, and of course, more care about youth and youth employment. So this is very, very important list of potential infrastructural investment and investment in employment policies that will support economic recovery of our countries. Finally, just 3 things to share with you regarding cases of greening of economy through the tourism in Montenegro. It is my pleasure to announce that Montenegro, a few days before, just declared the first protected marine area, Nature Park Platamuni. It is on the open sea near between Budva and Bay of Boka, just shortly to explain where it is. And it is first area protected in Montenegrin coastal part. And together with that, we are working on midterm management plan for the Salina Nature Park in Ulcinj. So together with the important investment of Investment Development Fund for the hotel industry, for the energy efficiency programs, support for electric cars, programs regarding Eco Fund calls, and some other new initiative from Investment Development Fund and Ministry of Economy, do hope that it will be enough support for tourism, not only in Montenegro, but also in all countries in our region, to speed up this economic recovery process and to support tourism sector, not only to be sustainable and survive this hard time, but also to think about development and full recovery. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Judovic. So last but not least, we will look at the marketing side of tourism projects of macro-regional relevance. And for this, we have with us Alex Sreva, who for more than 2 decades has worked as a travel journalist, regularly contributing, for example, to the New York Times, National Geographic Travel, or Lonely Planet. And since 2010, he has also worked as a project consultant across Europe, focusing on community and product development, education, promotion, and assisting destinations to find their own voices. So the latter will also be part of his presentation of reclaiming the local tourism narrative through storytelling and product development. Please, Alex.
Thank you very much. And I'm honored to be a part of this and to be one of the panelists among so many esteemed folks. Not sure I deserve it, but thank you for having me. I'm going to share my screen and move from there. Is this clear?
Mm-hmm, we see it.
So first thing I'll just say is I'll start my timer so that I don't go too long. is that I think to some degree, I congratulate everybody for speaking about this. I also think that it's kind of a pity that worldwide catastrophe has to bring us to a point where we start talking about some of these issues in a real way. From that perspective, even though COVID has been a disaster for all of us and for the world in many ways, I can see some positivity because we start to move into a direction that frankly, we probably should have been going in anyway. Often when I consult with national and municipality tourism offices, I ask them to think as if we're in crisis to begin with. And that way we can do the responsible thing from the beginning. And in a normal year, when we don't have COVID, we can then also have normal levels of tourism. If you do the responsible thing from the beginning and have good numbers, then you can really turn a profit. But I would argue that turning a profit without doing the responsible thing to begin with, even in years where we had great tourism, doesn't mean anything because it will always eventually fail. The situation will always eventually fail if we are dependent on things that we can't guarantee. So I work as a journalist primarily, but I also consult with tourism organizations and tourism offices and different tourism professionals. I give workshops, and the things that I typically give workshops and different kinds of lectures about is the idea of sustainable tourism, but not from the perspective that we normally think of, which is in terms of resource management. My argument is that we have to be sustainable about who tells our stories. Most of the countries, and I live in Croatia, and I typically work with a lot of the countries in the Western Balkans, are dependent on foreign journalists and foreigners telling their stories. It's impossible for a foreigner to come to any of the countries of the Western Balkans, stay for 4 days, and be a reliable source for telling the story of folks in the region. Sustainability happens, from my perspective, when locals are telling their own stories as well, and if not primarily. I think that the way to do that is to make sure that we have more and more local storytellers, more and more local travel journalists, instead of depending on foreign coverage. We can see in a year like COVID that when you rely on foreign coverage for the majority of your public relations, it's a disaster because nobody could travel to any of our countries. So first of all, with sustainability, I believe that we need to think about the human resources first. Humans, locals from these countries, should be the primary storytellers. Products should come from that perspective, not the opposite. We shouldn't develop first and then try to fit in a story. We should think about what it is, the stories that actually work to push our communities, and then develop based on strengths. The locals are the stars in this situation, not the tourists. Let's not be American about this. The customer is not always right. The country is the place that has to continue to be the one that exists and is sustainable in the future. Tourists will come, but if we do it based on trends as opposed to what we really have, which is the inheritance that we have received from generation after generation after generation, then we can't succeed. All countries have everything that they will ever need to succeed. You don't need a shiny new hotel to be a successful tourism country. Your great-great-grandparents have already given you all the culture that's needed to succeed in tourism. So my argument and my belief is that we should teach locals to tell their stories. We should teach teams and groups of people in their own countries to be travel journalists, not just rely on foreign travel journalists. Good examples of a few routes that I have both been fundamentally working on and helping to develop was the Via Donatica, which we all are aware of, I'm sure, that runs throughout from Slovenia and Croatia and then throughout all of the Western Balkans. Bike Slovenia Green, which I've had the great fortune to be a part of, working with folks there and over the last year, and also the Eurovelo, which also is a bike route that runs through every single one of the countries that are involved here today. I'll just say very briefly, the reason that these things work is because locals are first in all three of these stories. They're very simple stories to understand. You start one place, you go to another place, and a bunch of places are involved in between. And editors love this stuff. It's easier almost to sell stories if you're doing it from the right direction, instead of trying to come up with something that fits development instead of development fitting the story. Trust your inheritance is my main point. This is the hardest thing that I have to speak with folks about, is can you believe that what your great-great-grandmother did is good enough for folks to want to come to your country? You have to believe that first, not wait for foreign validation. Anybody feel free to get in touch with me any time that you need to for any reason. I'm very happy to brainstorm. There's no strings attached. I like to talk about this stuff. alexkravar.com is and you can find my email address there too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alex, and I'm sure that your expertise could come in handy to promote the cultural roots of Europe, and to bring in a comment from the audience from Emanuele Abatista, who said it is necessary to design new cultural routes for development and promote these kind of destinations. So I'm sure user will continue to working on this, and we would need, I think, especially journalists like you who can help the narrative, the storytelling for this endeavor. We have 5 minutes left for questions from the audience, and we have received one from Ludmila Koprivets, and I would address that question to Senka, our dear pillar coordinator. I will read it out loud. Ludmila asked, are there any projects regarding revitalization of dry walls planned in the future of USAIR, where locals and dry wall owners can apply and participate? The focus could be on enriching traditional dry walls techniques, supporting permaculture and ecological farming, promoting and developing health and well-being, being part of wider sporting routes such as cycling, walking through nature, and so on.
Thank you for the question. So precisely this kind of project regarding the dry walls, we haven't in our flagships yet, but it is an interesting idea. Nevertheless, we have a project that is related to culture routes that will contribute to harmonized distribution of tourism flows through sustainable management of culture routes in macro-regional territories. And then we have also a project related to development of unified methodological framework for cultural tourism surveys in Adriatic and Ionian region that will contribute to understand what cultural tourism wants, and it will help us to know the new needs of our tourists, and it will help us to diversify air culture tourism products.
Thank you very much for the answer. We have not received a second question so far, but maybe I would pass a comment to the panelists to see who would like to first answer this, and then also to be excited about your answer in general. So from Annika Patregnani, I hope I pronounced it correctly, there was the comment that bottom-up approaches to sustainable tourism are always work better. Would you agree with that? I see Gordana Judovic nodding, so maybe you could answer this question, this comment. Unmute, please. Yes.
I always try to, it is from the classroom, you know, always try to make some communication by eyes, and this time, in this case, in this virtual world, what we have as a COVID framework. Yes, of course, I agree with that bottom-up approach, specifically if we talk about tourism, about transnational dimension. And I think that this panel was a nice opportunity to see a lot of interesting proposals, and of course to strengthen our networks and to work on the joint ideas together. I think never mind is country small or big, we have the same tasks. So let's listen how it is from the local level, and let's try to merge our ideas in new projects. It is only my message.
Thank you very much. I agree. And maybe I would also bring in Masha, because I also see that she has been reacting to this comment. So maybe you could take the floor.
Yes, I can present you our example, how Walk of Peace idea is developed in Slovenia, concrete. Our cities in Kobarid, really close to Italian border, 8, let's say young, I am still young, people from local area who couldn't get a job otherwise so easily, have an opportunity to work with local people, to work with our first partners, Italian, and then also with support of different European projects, even with support of Alex. We know each other. He understands our story very well, and I understand what he was speaking. We try to develop Walk of Peace idea from local point to transnational story, who can even maybe is an opportunity to reunite Europe on a tragedy of First World War. But our real experience is that our first partner, Italy, who was 100 years ago our let's say enemy, but not in a directly speaking, is now really our first friend, and we really work together. So I would like to thank you, Promo Turismo from Friuli Venezia Giulia region, because they also believe in it as we on Slovenian part. And we hope that with other European projects, we will spread this message from Ukraine to France and Great Britain till Baltic City and down to Bulgaria and Greece.
Thank you very much, Masha. And again, you having very nice words today, I have to say. I also have to say within User, I see that the cooperation has, I mean, there was some cooperation before, but also User has enhanced and multiplied very much during the past years. I'm also happy to see that it's growing, that relationships have been established, strengthened, and I think this is something very important also if we look into the future to tackle challenges together. Unfortunately, we have almost reached the end of our session. So as a last task of my role as moderator, I would invite back Ms. Natalia Havidic, Director General at the Directorate for Strategic Planning, Digitalization and EU from the Ministry of Tourism and Sport of Croatia for her concluding remarks.
Thank you, Nadine, for giving me the word back. Thank you all, thank you panelists for really interesting presentations, really interesting examples, and we see that they are all in line with the priorities that we defined in our forum today. Allow me to finally conclude this forum. We need to put the embedding process into full potential for tourism, strengthening the EOSIRE macro region. EOSIRE is abundant in unique protected areas of culture and nature, and they need to be properly managed as thematically connected destinations. They need to be managed sustainably, redirecting tourist flows from the burden spots to lesser known ones, gaining visibility through thematic focus and interpretation of their values, connected in cultural roots, supported by activities such as biking, river cruising, hiking, and so on. EOSIRE has a very authentic offer and in its culture. Visibility comes through authenticity as one of the key values of local communities. It supports tourism as economy of identities, providing attractiveness and transformative experience for visitors. It is revealed through stories, and storytelling is the tool that can transfer local values and meaning to visitors. EOSIRE strengthens its members through connectivity and integrated approach. Integrated sustainability destination management is essential in EOSIRE and should be based on data, research, service, and planning, innovation, multidisciplinarity, multi-intelligence systems, using all applicable tools, especially digitalization. Supported by hybrid knowledge and education, destination management relies on responsible planning, diversification, special interest product development, and promotion, resulting in green EOSIRE tourism. The synergizing capacity of tourism and culture can provide a positive impetus, new strength and enthusiasm, initiate new ways of thinking that improve positive human relations and inspire sustainable and responsible development of EOSIRE, and have the power to rehabilitate societies and economies fragmented by crisis and pandemics. As Director Tokarski pointed out, as his final conclusion, recovery in EOSIRE should develop further through embedding process taking into account full participatory approach, inclusiveness, and multi-level governance. This could be all as a conclusions of this today's forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Havidic. I have nothing left to say but to thank all the speakers for their valuable inputs and of course the audience for watching. I hope you had some inspirational ideas on how macro-regional projects can contribute to green sustainable tourism. And very last, I would also like to invite you to stay with us, to keep on watching the 6th user forum, because we will have at 12 o'clock an interview with Luka Čulić from the duet Two Cellos. So don't miss this. And I'm glad that you watched. I thank you for watching the session, and we will see each other next time. Thank you very much.